position. Required a lot of communication skills. They gave me a chance to work with lots of different people. So if you've had a lot of summer jobs or internships that are not directly relevant, you've still learned about communication, you've still learned about working with people, you've still learned about following deadlines, getting things done on time. So these are the things you can talk about your work experience and still be credible about that. Last paragraph, I can meet you anytime. You can reach me at this phone number or email me at this address. So those are that's the formula for writing a cover letter. If you follow that paragraph formula, you'll be in pretty good shape whenever you write a cover letter. Now, my sister is a nurse, and she's a job hopper. She's 10 years older than me. In my life, I've had 3 major jobs, okay? And I've been working now for about 20 years. So I've had 3 major jobs. My sister is 10 years older than me. She's probably had 20, 25 jobs. She stays in a job for about 8 months, gets mad at people, and then gets another job. Then gets mad at those people, and then gets another job. And she and I are a lot different. And like I said, she's a nurse, and so her email address that she created for herself several years ago, which she still uses, and she puts on cover letters and puts on resumes and uses to apply for jobs, is naughtynurse@aol.com. Okay? I think that's part of the reason she's a job hopper, and part of the reason that she doesn't get a lot of the jobs that she wants. So it's very important that you have a standard email address when you're applying for a job. You can use the student address if you want, the live.mercer.edu address. Then they know right away you're still a student, and that's okay. Better is to use your name at gmail.com or something like that, something standard, professional, just showing that you have a basic email address. I have students that turn in cover letters with I love Star Wars at bellsouth.net. I mean, crazy email addresses. Or they just use their ID at live.mercer.edu, which is a substitute for your full name. Not good. Better to use your name at whatever domain it is and just leave it at that and stay away from crazy email addresses. If you flip it over, you'll see that on the back is the resume. This is annotated for you as well. You'll notice at the top, the person chose to use a black box to offset their name and put their email address with a little bit of contrast there. That's just an attention getter. It's not something you have to do. When you do that, if the resume is copied a lot, then that black box may fade. It may be hard to read. So there's some concerns that you might want to think about in doing something like that. But notice they have their name, their email address, which is a professional email address, their address on the side with the phone number, all of that in the heading, and they've separated that visually with a line. Then they have an objective, which says, professional position in the technical communication field that focuses on usability research. Now, this objective is not vague, it's specific because it talks about usability research, but it doesn't talk about a specific position. If there's a specific position called a usability engineer at a certain company, then that objective needs to change to say professional position as usability engineer at such and such company, so that you know that you're tailoring it for that company. They put a skill summary, that's appropriate, and just a couple of sentences about their skills. They started with their education. You always want to list your date of expected graduation, and the best way to do it is to do it just like it is here, with Mercer University, Macon, Georgia, expected May 2000, whatever. And underneath it, they put their Bachelor of Science degree and their minor. Easy to read. You get that quickly. You understand what that is. I put a note here. If your GPA is above 3.0, definitely put it on your resume. If it's above 2.5, think about putting it on your resume. If it's below 2.5, no need to put it on your resume. They may ask you about it, and you can tell them, but if it's above a certain point, you want to brag about that. If it's not, it doesn't hurt you to leave it off of it. This person didn't have a lot of work experience, so they listed projects that they were involved in. You can see those there, and they listed them in reverse chronological order. And they listed bullets, Important thing about the bullets is that each bullet should start with an action verb, and they should be parallel, okay, grammatically parallel. They listed computer skills. Again, they didn't have a lot of work experience, so they listed leadership first, which was important because an employer might want to know that you were a leader on campus. And then their work experience, though it was not relevant to the job they're applying for, is still work experience. They still talked to people, they still greeted customers, they still followed out tasks and duties, and so it's still worth putting on there. Ideally, I put a note at the bottom, your resume should end with any skills and honors that you have and not end with work experience. But in this particular case, the resume is arranged a little bit differently. I just wanted to show you an example of how that can be done. Let me show you just a couple. I'll show you one cover letter and one resume that go together. This is a student who I believe is a biomedical engineering, yes, a biomedical engineering major. And she followed the formula for the cover letter. She has her inside address at the top, the date, and then the inside address of the company with the person's name who's responsible for the job. She addresses the letter to that person, says directly, I am interested in obtaining the position of the Pet Acquisition and Systems Design Engineer. I found this information at careerbuilder.com. And then she says, here's my attention-getting thing. I have published research on over 100 subject-specific CT image models and can be a vital asset. And then she tells him what this letter contains. Okay? So she's covered everything in that first paragraph and set the tone for the letter. Here's where I would have written this a little bit differently. She says, I am halfway done with my engineering course material at Mercer University and have excelled in the courses taken. I would probably not have said halfway done. I would have said I have completed half of my requirements, or I have completed most of my requirements, or something a little more professional there. I am planning to graduate with a BSc. I would have spelled that out for the employer, so the employer would know that's Bachelor of Science in Engineering, because not every, even though it's an engineering company, you know, you want to tell them and make sure you give them all the information. And then she tells them what her specialty is. She says what her GPA is, and she talks about her projects and published research. Okay, so that's her education paragraph. This is her work experience paragraph. She doesn't have any specific work experience, but she's completed an internship for the EPA. That's important. That goes in there. She's also shadowed people, so she talks about that and talks about what skills and abilities she gained through that. Then she says, please feel free to contact me on my cell phone or email me, and I took the email address out because it was her name. And I look forward to hearing from you. And that's pretty much a perfect cover letter. A few things I would adjust and do differently. Pretty much a perfect cover letter. Let me show you her resume, and then we'll be done. Let's see. No. Yes. Now, I'll page down when we get there. I took her name off the top. She had her name in like 18-point font bold at the top, so I took that off. But she put her basic contact information there. I also took her email address off the top too, because it had her name on it. Her objective is written specifically for this job. Position as an engineer at GE Healthcare designing new systems. I mean, that tells you the resume has been written specifically for this job and no other job. Started with her education, Bachelor of Science Engineering. Again, I might have spelled that out. Anticipated May 2013. You can say expected May 2013. You can use any kind of future-oriented word like that. She's got her GPA there. She put related coursework to let the company know these are the courses I've taken that are specifically relevant to the job. Here's my publication. Don't have any work experience, but I've got technical experience as an internship and other projects I've done. Worked as a student tutor. Notice her bullets are here. They start with an action word each time, and they're parallel. You don't want to have a bullet that says assisted in aerosol inhalation laboratory, and then another bullet that says I did a project with the professor. That's not parallel. You want to make sure they start with the action verbs and be parallel. Let me just page down a little bit. did volunteer experience, and I think, yes, she had a lot of information, and I think this is valuable. She continued the bullets about her volunteer experience and her shadowing. Then she listed her honors and organizations, which were fairly significant. I would probably have dropped off the high school honors because at the engineering level, after a 4-year degree, they really don't care too much about your high school honors. They care more about your college honors. So I would have included the dean's list and all that, but dropped that off. Definitely included the national organizations that she's a member of. Definitely included the computer applications, because this shows that not only does she know how to use engineering software, but she knows how to do websites in Dreamweaver, and that might be useful for the position, you never know. So it shows her diversity in software that she knows. And these are some websites that the student has built, and just a short portfolio. The employer wants to go and look and know that person knows how to build websites in addition to being an engineer. And then, this is what I disagree with a little bit, but references available upon request. I mean, that's perfectly appropriate to do. Again, I just see both sides of that. So that's an example of a 2-page resume where all of the information is credible and belongs in there. And I see no reason why you shouldn't do a 2-page resume when you have that kind of information on there. So I can show you many other resumes and cover letters. Most of the examples I have are all basically the same. If you follow the formula, you'll come out with a pretty effective resume and cover letter. Don't forget that the package includes these things as well. And don't forget that it tells your story. You should change it for every job, and that you should always follow up. Because sometimes resumes and cover letters do get lost in the files, and you need to follow up on that. Any questions or comments that you have? Yes,
I have a question. I noticed on a couple of the examples that the titles of each section vary from resume to resume. Is there a specific, are there certain words that you should use to describe each section? Or?
Well, the standard words are education experience, work experience. If you don't have work experience, it's appropriate to use something like technical experience or project experience or something like that. It really depends on what you have. As long as you name it something professional and appropriate, then you're fine. There's really no set standard other than education word. Those are the standards to choose from. Yeah.
If you're interning for a company and go back to apply for that job for that company, should you just update your old one, or just completely rewrite the resume with updated stuff?
I mean, if you update the old one, that's essentially rewriting it. So, you know.
Right. But I mean, I just mean like.
You mean start from scratch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start from scratch, or just.
No, I wouldn't start from scratch.
Okay.
I would just update it to show your new experience, and then I would change your objective to show that you're applying for a full-time job. And if everything else is still appropriate, I would leave it the way it is.
Just don't want to look like.
Yeah. No, that wouldn't look lazy. That would show that you have tailored it.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as references go, if you haven't really had like work-related experience in the field you're applying for, should you use references from a completely unrelated job?
What I recommend for references, if you don't have a lot of work experience, is that you have one Mercer reference, one professor at Mercer, but only one Mercer reference. You don't want to use 3 Mercer professors, because that shows that you have a limited field of contacts. One personal reference, and it would be great if that person is a professional person somewhere who just knows you and can vouch for your character. Maybe a doctor, even a dentist. I mean, somebody, a minister, somebody who knows you and can vouch for you. And then if you don't have any work experience, 2 references is not bad. If you do have work experience, you definitely want to have a reference from that work experience. If you have worked on a project here at Mercer and you had an outside client, then you can use that person. Even though that's a Mercer connection, it's still someone not associated with Mercer. But 2 references is better than no references. And so 3 is always kind of the standard. But definitely diversify the references. I see too many resumes where you have 3 Mercer professors on there, and that shows a very limited field of associations. So, yeah, definitely no family, even if they don't have the same last name. They'll figure it out. Yes.
I've interviewed quite a few people, especially coming out of college, and some of the things that I've seen, especially